The next thing I'm asking you to do in this section is graph. There's many different ways to graph, but I'm going to ask you two different ways. What you'll notice about this one is, it's hard to see because of the scratch outs, but your function here is y equals 3/5 x plus 1. Now you'll notice that y is by itself. When y is by itself, that's called the slope-intercept form of an equation. Now writing that formula out, you don't have to know the formula, but writing this formula out, when y is by itself, the slope and the y-intercept can be found by inspection. For example, this 3/5 is in the same position as m. That means 3/5 is my slope. This b represents what we call the y-intercept. We'll learn the formal definition for that in just a little bit, but that is the point where it crosses the y-axis. So it crosses the y-axis at 1. So when y is by itself, you can find the slope and the y-intercept by inspection. The slope is the coefficient of x and the y-intercept is the constant. So when I get ready to graph this one, it's actually really easy. I'm going to make sure I'm on my y-axis. So circle that to make sure you saw the y-axis. 1 on the y-axis is at this position right here. Now from that red dot, I have to use rise over run. My slope is 3/5. So that means I'm going to rise 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to run 5 places. And since the positive numbers are this way, I'm going to run in that direction. Go up 3, over 5. Now, once you go there, go ahead and draw your line. Rise, over, run. Now, when I got the rise part done, I had to run. My 5 was positive, so I ran in the positive direction. So I ran to the right. So I went up 3 and over 5. Okay, when you look at the second one, you'll see that it is not in slope-intercept form. So the first thing that I need to do with this particular equation is I need to get the y by itself. So to get the y by itself, I'm going to move the 2x to the other side. And y would equal negative 2x plus 5. Now y is by itself. When y is by itself, you can find your slope because that's what's in front of x. So my slope here is negative 2. The y-intercept is the number stuck on the back. So the y-intercept here would be 5. Now I just label it as 5. If you wanted to be more formal, the y-intercept is actually the point 0.05. So you're welcome to write it that way. Now again, the very first thing that I needed to do in order to graph it this way is make sure y is by itself. When y is by itself, that's when you can find your slope and intercept. Okay, when I get ready to graph this one, I'm going to make sure I'm on my y-axis at 5. My slope is negative 2. Now, that's a whole number, but slope has to be a fraction. So if you have a whole number, you want to put it over 1 because that's the same thing as negative 2, but you need a rise and you need a run. Sorry about that. You need a rise and you need a run. So I'm going to start at the red dot, the red point that is on the graph, and it says rise negative 2. So rise negative 2 means go down 2. So that's where I would be right there. After that, I need to run 1. You'll notice that 1 is positive, so I want to run in that direction. Down 2 and over 1, and then I can draw my graph. Wasn't very straight, but it'll do the job. And that's how it looks. Let me skip down a little. Okay, now looking, if you move down on your notes a little bit further. I'm going to skip a couple of examples and go to this one. For this one, I asked you to find the slope and the intercept. Well, that's exactly what we've been doing. This is the general form of the equation of a line. So in order to find the slope and intercept, I want to solve for y. So to get y by itself, I'm going to keep the 6y and move everything else to the other side. So when I move this 3x to the other side, it becomes negative. And when I move this 12 to the other side, it changes signs too, and it becomes positive. Now after that, I'm trying to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide by 6. You're actually going to divide everything by 6. So cleaning this up, y would equal a negative 3/6x plus 2. Well, negative 3/6x reduces to negative 1/2 x plus 2. Now, y is by itself. When y is by itself, the coefficient of x is my slope. The constant on the end is my y-intercept. And that's how we get started. When I get ready to graph this one, I'm going to make sure I'm on my y-axis at 2. And then I'm going to use my slope. And my slope is a negative 1/2. Now you have to pick a place for the negative to go. It can either go with the top number or the bottom number, but it has to go with only one of them. So I always let my negative, if the slope is negative, I let my negative go with the top number. So from the red point that's already on the graph, I'm going to rise 1 that's negative. That means go down 1. The 2 is positive, so I'll go over in the positive direction, and that's what my graph would look like once I draw it. Whoops, try that again. Let me try this again. There we go, that's a little better. Having trouble drawing a straight line today, sorry about that. And that's how it would look. There are other ways to graph too, and I'll show you that in the next video.